Welcome to the Big and Tall Show, a podcast that is designed to help you in your faith and encourage you to stand big and tall as a Christian. In this sinful world, the Christian life can be difficult, but Mark, who is big, and Tom, who is tall, are here to help you navigate your Christian journey. And now, get ready to experience the wit and wisdom of Tom and Mark as you listen to the Big and Tall podcast.
Mark, here we are on February 18th, and we're doing it, brother. We are actually doing it. We've been talking about it for a year or two, and we are actually starting. This is season 1, episode 1 of the Big and Tall podcast.
That's right, Tom. We welcome everybody that may be listening to what we are calling the Big and Tall Show. And I guess we need to start there. Why are we calling it the Big and Tall Show? Well, there's two reasons. Number one is that I'm big. And
it's all relative, Mark. It's all relative.
And Tom is tall.
I am tall.
I mean, if you see us coming in, we go out to eat every now and then. If people see us in public, they look at us and say, man, he's big. And then they say, wow, he's tall. And so that's why we're calling it the Big and Tall Show. And the purpose is for you to stand big and tall in your faith. Just as our intro mentioned, and we want to thank Jay Webb for the intro and for all of his help to get us going here on the new podcast. But just as he said in our intro, we live in a difficult world, in a sinful world, and it is hard sometimes to stand big, to stand tall in your faith, and that's why we want to hopefully come on each week and to help people stand big and tall in their faith.
And Mark, that's something that is not new. We read in the Bible, there's nothing new under the sun. And we've always, since the dawn of creation, since Adam and Eve, we've been in a fallen world where sin has been a part of it. But that doesn't change the need for encouragement and for us to use God's word to help us and to help others to stand big and tall in our faith in this sinful world. So Mark, I believe it's probably good. There's a good chance we'll have 10 people ever listen to this podcast. But if we do have 10 and there are 7 that don't know who we are, it might be a good idea for us to introduce who we are and why we're doing this. So Mark, I'll let you begin with your introduction of yourself.
My name is Mark Hastings. I am a minister. I actually preach for 2 congregations. The Alder Springs Church of Christ in Albertville, and also for the Hebron Church of Christ in Grant. And I've been doing that for several years. I love both congregations, and I've been a minister for I guess about 20 years now. I ran Camp Naoti for about 7 years, and we had a good experience with that. But I've been a minister and love the people, love God's people, love His Word, and love teaching and preaching His Word. How about you, Tom?
Well, and I appreciate everything that you've always done for the Lord's church and for helping to not only spread the gospel, but always be an encouragement to me and other people. I am, as you are, a follower of Christ. I'm a Christian that I attend at the Bethel congregation in East Limestone area of North Alabama. And, I was in education for 25 years, and that was a big part of my life. And being able to see, as we talked about earlier, the sinful nature of the world. And tell you what, being in a high school building for 25 years with roughly 2,000 students, there's some wonderful kids in this world, and then there are people that eventually fill prisons. And I mean, honestly, that's part of it. And so being able to see the good and the bad in the youth of the world and seeing things that have really helped people and things that have always been a discouragement for people. So we both have great families, and I know that that's a big part of our lives as well. You are blessed
We are. We're both blessed, and this is one reason for the podcast. We still struggle. We have a lot of good things in life, and we count our blessings daily. But just like everybody else, we have struggles. We have, days that are not good, and we have times where sometimes even our faith struggles, and we struggle in our Christian walk, even though we've been Christians for many, many years. And we also understand that other people feel the same way. And hopefully this podcast, and we'll talk about the details in a second, but hopefully it's going to be a weekly podcast. I hope that it can, help somebody, encourage somebody, brighten someone's day. We're gonna look at a lot of different things. We're hopefully going to have some humor along the way, because life is humorous sometimes. But we're going to try to keep it at about 15 minutes for our weekly show.
15 to 20.
15 to 20.
Let's be realistic.
It's according to what we get into, what we're going to talk about. But 15 to 20 minutes. I mean, when I preach, I don't go any longer than 30 minutes. I mean, who wants to listen, to me for 30 minutes? Right, Tom?
I mean, I would pay money to hear that.
Okay,
but
thank you.
So our segments within our podcast, and we are planning to break down our podcast into a couple of segments each week. That various topics, basically. As many as we can that are tied into the Bible stories, and how does a passage apply to me, or a verse of the week. But we're also going to make sure that we're tying in some things that are current and going on. We'll have a Mark's World, and we'll have a Tom's World segment. We'll talk about different verses for the week or quote of the week, and but basically sticking to the idea of trying to encourage people to be able to stand big and tall in their faith in this sinful world.
That's right.
And like you mentioned, that applies to us more than anyone else.
And, one other thing to consider, Tom, this is a podcast, and this is not a video cast.
I wish it was, to be honest.
Well, and we may get to that. I know people that may not know us, or maybe they hadn't seen us in a while, and they're like, I forget what they look like. They're so curious now, I mean, when we're saying we're big and we're tall, man, I wish I could see them, But so it may turn into, we may do a special video cast one time.
When we reach our 2 millionth follower,
Yeah,
we will,
okay.
Yes, that's the goal.
All right, we'll just set that now, 2 million, and then we'll show everybody what we look like. I think that's reasonable.
Well, Mark, time is passing very quickly, as we knew it would, and I do want to get into our first segment for this week. Like I mentioned before, being in education for 25 years, maybe without a shadow of a doubt, one of the biggest influences on our young people going to misbehave in any way, whether that's turning to substance abuse or turning to sexual activity before marriage, different types of outbursts of rage and violence and stealing things. It all ties in, from what my experience is to a lack of self-confidence that people have in themselves. And so they're constantly looking for what's the next thing that can make me look better or make me feel good about myself, even though deep down their confidence is so low. And we are reminded in 2 Timothy chapter 1, and if a young person is ever looking for encouragement, Proverbs is a wonderful book to read. But when we look at Paul and his writings to Timothy, who estimations we don't know, but maybe 16 to 20 years old is what Timothy was. But when we read in 2 Timothy chapter 1, Paul said in verse 3, I thank God whom I serve with a pure conscience, as my forefathers did, as without ceasing I remember you in my prayers night and day, greatly desiring to see you, being mindful of your tears, that I may be filled with joy. When I call to remembrance the genuine faith that is in you, which dwelt first in your grandmother Lois and your mother Eunice, and I am persuaded is in you also. Therefore, I remind you to stir up the gift of God which is in you through the laying on of my hands. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. It's verse 7 there I really want to focus on. We are in a world that wants us to rely on outside sources for pleasure, for confidence. You look at the way that so many celebrities, it's the look at me attitude, and none of that is scriptural. We are to be servants as Jesus was a servant. But this particular verse, for God has not given us a spirit of fear. When I think, once again, going back to the 25 years in education I had, when you have young people who are timid and they don't have any self-confidence, they don't have confidence in their self-worth and who they are, and yet what the Bible teaches us is that God has given us not a spirit of fear, but a spirit of power and of love and of a sound mind, good judgment. The power and love, that should be what everyone's looking for. And that's what God's given us.
Tom, where do you think that lack of self-confidence originates? I mean, where does that come from? Because I think we're seeing that in our young people more than we have, but we're also seeing that in adults. Where do you think that's coming from?
Well, ultimately, as with all evil in the world, it comes from Satan. But sowing the seeds of doubt, in my opinion, is one of the greatest tools that Satan has. He knows how to lure different people with whatever is enticing to them. He's like a great fisherman. George Robinson, a long time ago, taught a lesson about using the right lures, and that's the way Satan tempts people. And telling people that they're not good enough, telling people that their worth is in worldly things versus spiritual things and all that God has given us, that leads to people searching and trying to find what can I be good at, and that goes down a really bad path so quickly in so many of our young people's lives. And like you said, not even just our young people, adults throughout the world, they're searching for worldly things, not for godly things.
And we know that those worldly things will not last, and you cannot find true happiness and true joy. And it's promised a lot. We're promised happiness and joy and peace and everything that the world tells us. Do these things, and that's where you'll find self-confidence. That's where you'll find power. That's where you'll find peace. But all of those are they're dead-end roads, and what we have is, like you read, God's given us a spirit of not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. Those are the things that will lead to true joy, true happiness in our lives, and that's what we need to be pursuing. That's what we need to be following.
Well, and not only those things you just mentioned, but honestly, it's a perfect segue into your segment of another thing that can be so pleasurable in our life in a very scriptural, spiritual way, which is of course kindness.
It is, and I want to touch on this topic. I've been preaching on the fruit of the Spirit from Galatians chapter 5. And we've covered several of these: love, joy, peace, patience. And then we got to kindness. And I thought, well, this is, going to be an easy lesson. This is going to be an easy study. And I guess it was easy enough, but I learned some things about kindness that I had not known before. And there is a passage in the Old Testament, in the book of Proverbs, that sort of just opened my eyes to what true kindness really is. And I want to read that. It's Proverbs 19 and verse 17, and it says this: "Whoever is kind to the poor lends to the Lord, and he will reward them for what they have done." I have never, realized what that verse means. Whoever is kind to the poor lends to the Lord. And that means that God is sort of in our debt, in a sense, and he will reward us for those kind deeds, and he will give it back with interest. When you loan somebody something, they give the money back with interest. That means we're going to get more kindness than we ever give out to others. And so, I just want, in my lifetime, I want people to look at me and to describe me as a man of kindness. Now, I will say this. I can't help what others see on the outside, my outward appearance. I can't change, my hair. I can't change my face. I can't change my stature. And it is what it is. And I understand, and I know we're only on audio, not video. I understand it is what it is, and it's not too much, okay? People are not going to look at me. I know this. People are not going to look at me and say, man, he's a knockout.
Don't sell yourself short.
I
totally disagree. I get the point you're trying to make, but Mark, you're a good-looking fella.
They're not going to say he's a 10. Now, I also understand I'm not a 5 either, but I'm not a 10. But I can help the way people view my character. I can't help what's on the outside, but I can help what's on the inside. And I hope and pray that when others come in contact with me, that they will see love, they will see compassion, they will see the kindness of Jesus Christ. And maybe when they leave my presence, they're not talking about, man, he looked good on the outside. But I sure hope that they can say, there goes a man that is full of kindness. Kindness is not an emotion. Kindness is not a feeling, but rather kindness is love in action. And we need to go out and show kindness to those around us, and I encourage you to do that. And so, Tom, we're going to end our very first podcast, Season 1, Episode 1, and the way we're going to end, hopefully on every one, staying with our big and tall in our faith theme. Tom, tell us one thing that we can do to stand tall in our faith this week.
According to, or going back to the passage that I shared at the beginning there, or in my segment, is we just need to live our lives, walk our daily walk, knowing that we have been given a spirit of power and of love and of a sound mind from the true and living God, the creator of the entire universe. And there is no greater confidence that you can have knowing that God is on your side and loves you, and that he's done so much for us through not only giving us his word and this spirit of power, but also in sending his son for us, knowing that we make mistakes, we fall short, but Jesus covers all of our sins. And I can't think of a better way to walk around with some courage and with some self-confidence and knowing all of that behind us. Mark, how about you? Tell us, how would you encourage people to stand big and tall in their faith?
Well, I just want to encourage people to go out this week and show kindness to others. There's a world out there that is begging for understanding. They're begging for compassion. They're begging for someone to show them kindness. And we need to be that light. We need to let others see Christ living in us, and the best way to do that is through our compassion and through our kindness. And I also say this: if you are listening to the show, if you're listening to our very first podcast, like it, share it, and also be kind to us. Okay, this is the very first one. Be kind,
because we are doing this with a lot of confidence, but we may get shot down really quick.
It's not real easy. No. Be kind to us, and have a good week. Lord willing, we'll see you guys next week.
This has been The Big and Tall Show, a podcast dedicated to helping you live your life for Jesus Christ. Thank you for listening.